We are back today talking about flashlights, and on the table we have the PD35R and the E35R from Fenix. We're going to talk about whether it's worth the upgrade over the past generations and have they genuinely improved their user interface, which has always been my biggest problem with Fenix. Let's go ahead and dig right in. First flashlight we're going to talk about is the Fenix PD35R. Now they're calling this, according to them, a compact rechargeable tactical flashlight. Now that's going to come up a couple of times and we're going to kind of refer back to it. And speaking of the manual, since we have it here, Fenix has the best manuals in the business, bar none. Not only is their stats completely accurate and have been verified by independent testers, but they are very detailed, showing you exactly when the drop occurs relative to everything else. So really nicely done as always with the user interface at the top and so on. I want to pay close attention to the turbo specifically in this case. 1700 lumens with 31,000 candela. That's a lot of intensity. What that means is that when you have the beam size, which is basically similar to lumens, that's kind of how we usually treat it, the amount of light within that space is incredibly high, 31,000 candela. All right, so that's how things work. You can have a low lumen count and a very high beam intensity, or you can have a very high intensity with a very low lumen count. It's really quite interesting, and if you want to know more about it, I can talk about it in the comments. Just go ahead and ask your questions there. What this will do is give us the ability to reach out at a long distance, in this case 353 meters. That's a very good distance for a flashlight that uses 18650. So nice job there. Now looking on the outside, we have a Type-C port that is covered by a silicone cover. We have, as always, a really fine construction from Fenix. They are very consistent in their quality control, some of the best in the business, in fact. We have a dome reflector with a glass lens and a crenulated bezel, which isn't too aggressive, which I appreciate because otherwise you wouldn't be able to take this into a lot of different places. Now, one thing I have to critique is this terrible pocket clip. I absolutely despise the ones that have those little shelves. You can see that little piece of metal that's sticking out. When you stick this in your pocket, it always gets caught in right under there and never goes into the slot. So I have to reposition it every single time, which is very annoying. If you have an otherwise very well designed and good quality control flashlight, why would you put a crappy clip on there? And they have other clips on their flashlights that do not have this problem. So in fact, looking at the other one, it's already better, but still similar problem. And they have other flashlights that don't have this at all. So improve the clip, please. That would be great. Now, let's go ahead and get to the flashlight itself. They're called this a tactical flashlight, and my guess is the reason they're doing that is because in the off position, this second switch will activate the maximum output for the strobe. So, strobe warning here, if I press this button and hold it, I will get strobe. When I let go, it turns off. All right, and I think that's what they're calling tactical. Now, if I turn on the switch here, I can half press or full press to get my first output. Now, I think this is actually the lowest output setting. Yes, it's the lowest output setting on this flashlight. And the way you adjust it through all the settings is with this secondary button, which was the strobe. Now I can cycle through, and if I hold press, once again, strobe warning, it will then turn on the strobe and keep it on. So that's how this light functions for the most part. And here's my problem. I love the quality control that Fenix delivers, and the settings and just the general output. They generally hit all the marks when it comes to stats. User interface is always the thing that I think they fall down on a little bit, and this is a great example of it. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to not blow out my vision, right? I'm in a dark room, I just woke up, and I grab my flashlight to go to the bathroom or whatever, and I need to turn it on in a low setting. If I have it saved on the 1700 lumens, I am going to blind myself, right, before I can get to the lowest output or cycle through the modes. not having the ability to access either turbo or moonlight directly from the tail right away has always been something that has irked me about so many different flashlights. And this is another great example. It's either on the lowest or on the highest setting, and sometimes it's not the one you need. I just feel like it would have been a little bit better had this been, instead of a strobe, had it been a turbo. Because then I can pretty much leave this on my lowest setting, and if I need more, I'll go higher. And then if you do that, you can get rid of memory entirely, because then you always have access to the top mode, and you always come in on the lowest to then cycle up from there, which is very quick to do. So I turn it on, cycle up. Very easy. But the problem is, now it's in this mode and it's locked that way until I go back around. Whereas if it didn't have mode memory and this was a turbo instead of a strobe, well, that would be way, way, way better. In fact, I would really like this flashlight if they did exactly that. Still, I think that a lot of people are going to enjoy it. But what they have really done here, I think, over the past generation is improve on its output. So this is quite a bit brighter and more intense than the past generation, which I don't have the stats memorized off the top of my head, but it's still a decent flashlight, no question. The quality control, the customer service experience from Fenix has all been very good for me. So can I recommend it? Kind of. I like it, but here's my problem. I think about this light, and the light that immediately comes to mind is the ThruNite TN12 Pro, which with this tail switch automatically has 1900 lumens of output, and if I want the lowest mode, I can just hold press the side switch. The drawback with this light is that the side switch has the tendency to turn on accidentally, whereas this, I don't think you're going to have that problem. So there's a give and take here that you might want to be made aware of. But yeah, I think the quality, if you get this light, you're going to enjoy the quality control. You're going to enjoy the durability of the light. Just make sure that you always keep the silicone cover closed, and you'll be able to maintain the IPX8 waterproof rating. Or this might actually be IP68. Yep, IP68 actually, which is even better. So just a real quick aside, IP68 is an independent certification from someone who is testing both the sand and waterproof rating. And IP68 is the best you can get outside of dive flashlights, okay, which measure in a different way. Okay, so that's really good, and so something also of note. So nice job from Fenix. Actually not a bad offering. A little bit of tweaking in the user interface, a slightly better clip, and I think they're going to be good to go. Now moving on to the E35R. The biggest difference you're going to see here is in size of the battery. So in the case of the E35R, we are using the 21700, which has 5000 milliamp hours, and in the case of the PD35R, it is an 18650. I'm not sure I understand the conventions for naming, especially because they don't seem very similar in function in any way, but just understand the difference. You're going to have a lot more runtime with this light than you will with the one we just covered. Let me put that away real quick. The runtime is a big part of this light, and it's gonna be a decent emergency light because it has that long runtime, and it's also going to be a decent emergency flashlight because of the other features that it has, including the magnetic tail cap. So testing out this magnetic tail, it's okay, but not great. Like it could be stronger. And by comparison, here's the Pro Max from Olight, which is the same battery size, and you can see quite a bit stronger. All right, so we'll get that out of the way for now. Now, as always, Fenix has some of the best quality fit and finish of any of the production flashlights, so I do always appreciate that. And in this case, also, the Type-C port, it feels like it's a little bit more secure with this silicone cover than it is in the other light. I like that this is harder to pull out. That's a good thing because I don't want to ruin the IP68 waterproof rating. by having this be open. That's going to ruin the flashlight. So that's something to keep in mind. We have, once again, a pretty meh clip. I think they could do better, especially to match up with the quality control of everything else. Now, let's get to the user interface. From off, all I have to do to turn on is hold for half a second. Now this is going to bring me in on whatever mode I have memorized last. So if I turn that off by pressing again, then I'll stay in that mode. So to cycle through the modes, I'm going to press one time. I'll go up here and then I will turn it off again. And then when I turn it back on, it comes in back on that mode. Now, while it's on, if I want to get to strobe, I can hold press for a few more seconds than I would normally. So just a strobe warning here. There you go. And that will actually lock into strobe until you press it one time, and then it'll go back to whatever output setting you had. I don't actually dislike that way of accessing strobe. That is actually something I do like, that they made it so that you can get the strobe and go back to whatever setting you had. So if you're walking around and you have like a wild animal coming at you, you can immediately jump from there to strobe, which I do think is quite useful. Unfortunately, this doesn't work if your flashlight is off. So that's something of note. Now, speaking of off, let's turn it off again. If I want to lock out the flashlight, it's a quick double press, and you'll see a flashing beam. This is the lowest output setting, so you know it's in lockout, so you can't mess with it when it's in the lockout setting. To unlock, it's simply a double press, and it will bring you in on the lowest output setting. Now, this is a little bit of a hack to get access to that lowest mode, even if you have memorized something that is even like the maximum output. You can lock it out and then unlock it, and it will always come in on that lowest setting. Interesting. I think it's a little bit annoying to have to go through those hoops in order to access the lowest mode from off, but here we are. I've said it once and I will say it a billion times. Pretty much the only thing holding back Fenix is user interface, almost always. When you compare the user interface between these two, which are very similar in functionality, it's no contest. I would always pick the Olight over the Fenix, even though the Fenix has better output, better run times, okay? And in some ways, I would argue has even better quality control than Olight. The fact that it has that user interface quirk really annoys me. Whereas with this, I can go straight to turbo, I can go straight to strobe, and I can go straight to moonlight whenever I feel like it. It also worth mentioning that this flashlight actually has a moonlight. And I think the kind of purpose for this light is potentially a home drawer light that you pull out when power is out. And with a 21700 battery, you're going to get massive run times, a maximum of 69 hours on that lowest output setting of 30 lumens. Now that is far better than what Olight offers on their lowest setting in this light. But this one has a moonlight mode that still goes for like 100 days. So if you don't need 30 lumens of light and just need a little bit of light, that is offered there where this doesn't have it. I'm not saying that they need to directly copy the user interface. You know what? That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that they should upgrade the user interface to the same thing. And they're not the only brand using this, by the way. It's been around for a long time. That system would just work so much better. And if we had Fenix flashlights with better user interfaces, my God, they would own the market, right? Because not only do they have presence in retail stores like REI, but they also have good quality control and everything else. So that's pretty much all I want to say today. If you're looking for a decent, not the best, but maybe a decent tactical flashlight, I definitely think the PD35R has got the right combination for the most part. And if you want a good kind of stick in a drawer flashlight or something to have for camping, I definitely think the E35R would work. Simply because the run times are so astronomically long. I mean, you're never going to need to recharge this in the course of a week's trip unless you're using, well, the maximum output all the time. Which, by the way, the maximum output for that light still lasts for over 2.5 hours. Now it's going to drop rather quickly, but it still has over 1,000 lumens for over 2 hours after that point. So great lights. Little bit of an issue with the user interface. I hope that they will consider upgrading in the future. But yeah, this is what we have. Is it worth it to upgrade? Yeah, actually, speaking of the 35R, I think I tried the older version. I actually like the no memory version better than having memory, because I think it's be nicer to know that I'm coming in on the lowest output setting all the time, and I think that would be easier to teach someone. So if they didn't have any understanding of the flashlight, I think that they would figure it out. All right, that's pretty much all I have to say for today. Good job, Fenix, as always, delivering high quality products, and hopefully they can work on that user interface. Thanks again for your time, and we'll talk again soon.